Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to share simple gel printing techniques that I like to use. Usually when I do gel printing, I don't do anything super complicated. Um, and I'm going to try not to ramble on too much because I'm doing a lot of the same techniques over and over again, just using different items. So I wanted to well, first let me say that I'm using this rubber band idea. There are lots of things you can use around your house for this type of idea. I've seen people use string, yarn, paper clips, all kinds of things. So if you want to try this idea, you can use your imagination. And I have to let that dry a couple of minutes. It doesn't take long if you don't spread your paint out too thick before I put the next layer on. And then I'll be able to pull up a nice print. As you'll see, I love that cool background that I created with the rubber bands. Now, as you see there, I have a piece of paper on the side that I roll off my excess paint. Look how beautiful that is. I think it's beautiful. So I roll off my excess paint and I take off my excess paint with the papers to the side. And then later I will try to sort of fix those papers where you just rolling paint off and taking paint off willy-nilly. It looks a little bit of a mess, but there's a way to fix those to look better. So now I'm doing the same idea with a stencil, laying it down and then removing the excess paint and then letting that layer dry underneath and then applying another layer of paint and pulling the print. So while I'm doing that, let me say quickly that this idea for this video also is in response to the prompt in the Mixed Media Facebook group that I took over earlier this year. It's called the Mixed Media Emporium, and if you're interested in joining, I'll leave a link below to that. You must answer 4 questions in order to be accepted into the group, and it is a prompt-based group, so all the posts are based on the prompts, and the prompt for this week and this particular video is tools and techniques. So usually I will pick a tool or technique, and this week it happens to be gel printing. So the post for the Facebook group this week, or really going forward in the future, should be about using gel printing in some way. The other thing about the group is that if you don't have a gel plate, you can use other things to create the sort of look of a gel plate. You can use plastic, you can use glass. I haven't tried glass, but I have seen it used. Now I'm doing a different technique where I remove the paint with the stencil on the plate, but then I'm adding paint on top of the stencil so that you have some paint on the first layer, and then you have another color on the second layer with the stencil still on. Hopefully that makes sense. This particular print didn't have the 2 colors as much as it normally does, and maybe I didn't let my paint dry enough, or I don't know. With gel printing, sometimes you can't always get the same result, even though you do the same thing each time, and I kind of like that about gel printing, so that's fine with me. Now I have a little bit of paint left on there, and I'm not going to clean that up. I want to pick that up with another layer of paint, and you'll see how nice it turns out. So with this technique and a lot of gel printing, it's really important that you don't put your paint on too thick. It's really hard to explain how much paint to put on because it's really a matter of practice. You just kind of get a feel for it, and I can kind of tell when I have too much paint on there. So you just have to, try it and practice. But overall, look how beautiful that is, picking up that those extra bits of paint that are left there. Overall, I would say, apply a very thin layer of paint, especially if you're applying more than one layer, and always let your base layer dry first before you pull the print. That's important too. And before you add a second layer too. There I didn't add enough paint, which is really unusual for me. I usually use too much. So as the other that, by the way, that's a piece of wallpaper, textured wallpaper that someone gave me, and I love that pattern. I just absolutely love it. Wait till you see the print that you get from that. Anyway, so see, I'm trying to hurry up that drying process there before I apply my next layer and pull the print. So I forgot what I was saying. I'll get back to it in a minute. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out too is for today, I'm just using some regular copy paper, 8.5 by 11 copy paper, and I have my small gel plate out so I can pull 2 prints on each page. And I just, like I said, I decided to keep things simple. I always try to keep things fairly simple. I don't really like complicated processes. And wait till you see that gold. At least I love it. Look at that. I love a shiny gold. Let's see if I can remember what I was rambling on about. I do remember. You can see that I'm not applying my paint that evenly or carefully. I am removing extra paint if I have it because, again, you won't get as good a result, but I'm not trying to make really smooth layers and smooth perfect prints. I like the grungy look, and I like the way these kind of call it splotchy prints turn out. I think they're interesting, and I like that look. So I am doing, again, this same sort of technique. I do a little variation here and there, but there you can see how really splotchy that is, and I think it produces a cool effect. But you could spread out your paint more evenly if that's what you like and the look you're going for. You want to make sure you press that down really well to pick up all your paint. I love the way that turned out. And since I use my prints, I tear them into smaller pieces and use them on backgrounds of my art journals. I don't really need one really smooth print. So it also depends on what you're using these prints for. I didn't put enough of that blue paint on there, which is really unusual. I usually use too much. So recently I bought some new paints. They're the Lukas Krill paints that as far as I know, you can only get from Jerry's Artorama, or that's where I get them from. And this is not a commercial for Jerry's Artorama, but I can't remember how I discovered those prints, but I really love them. Those paints. And so I got some new colors, and that's also what prompted this video. I really wanted to use them, so I use them a lot in this gel printing session. And I also use my gold. I love gold. I love a bit of gold shininess. This print, I think, turns out especially beautiful. And there you see it. Oh, I love that. I love it. Sometimes people ask me where I get my stencils. Most of the stencils I use come from Stencil Girl. I love their stencils. I love their company. I don't get paid by them either. I don't get any benefit from mentioning them, but I just thought I would mention it because I love, they just have such a great variety, and they're really great quality and so on. Different sizes, all the things. They're always coming out with new stencils. I love it. There's my giant bubble wrap. I love that big bubble wrap. So I have all sizes of bubble wrap that I save from packages I get in the mail. And I love the way that pattern looks on a gel plate. You can use bubble wrap, and a lot of the items I use for texture, you can use them as stamps as well. You can spread a paint out. If you don't have a gel plate, you can spread it out on a piece of paper, anything, and then place your texture item like the bubble wrap on the paint, and then press it down on another piece of paper that you want to add that pattern to, and it turns out great. That bubble wrap is so cool. I don't love that color combination I just pulled, but I do love the look of the bubble wrap. There's one of my new paints. Isn't that a pretty color? That green, and you can see there, I figured out I added way too much green paint, so I'm going to put it to the side. I do use it later. I don't love that green, but I don't know why I pulled it out to use. I like different, softer shades of green, but oh well. It all turns out fine. As you can see, my paper there next to me is kind of a hot mess, but I'm going to show you how you can fix a paper like that and make it look better. Not right at the moment, but in just a minute. And again, you can see how I'm really not spreading that paint out all that much. A little splotchy there, and it turns out fine, I think. You can see there. Okay, so now I think is when I'm gonna do the technique. Yeah, if you put some white paint down, that's a lot of white paint. I use way too much again. And then choose a stencil that has some larger openings. And I'm gonna do that now. And then you take your hot mess of a paper and put it down on that paint. You'll see how it just really tones down the mess in the background, and it looks really cool, I think. So I'm going to remove as much of that white paint as I can, and then it leaves behind a really nice background as well when I remove the stencil. And I'll let that dry, pick that up, and it makes a nice print as well. With this print coming up, it didn't show the white paint as much in the background as I would have liked. Probably with a darker color it would have been a little better, but I still like that print a lot. It's subtle and it turned out nice. So I'm going to try not to ramble on here because again I'm doing a lot of the same technique over and over again. I'm trying to use up that extra green paint. Just mixing it around a bit. That piece that I didn't use, there's another piece of textured wallpaper, but the piece I didn't use that looks like a Lego, I actually got that at the dollar store. I don't know if they still sell those because I bought those a few years ago, and that's a great piece to use as texture. I'll use that in just a minute too. That textured wallpaper, if you can get any of that, is great. I was gifted those, so I don't know how you would get it, except maybe go to a paint or wallpaper store and ask if they'll give you or sell you, the wallpaper books that they're no longer using. Wallpaper is making a comeback, so they might have the wallpaper books again in the stores. And there's that print. It's kind of a weird color combo, but it's okay, something different. And I'm sure I'll use it someday. And now I have a lot of paint and texture left over, so I'm going to pick that up with that blue color. Again, you can see I've used a very light amount of paint and didn't spread it around much. I used my Lego-like piece, and I love the way that turned out. Very cool. I like that. I try not to think about the colors I'm using too much, but there I was obviously having some sort of issue figuring out what to do next. I use turquoise a lot too, as well as touches of gold, but turquoise is one of my go-to colors for sure. Let that dry. If you see a little transition in between my paint layers, it's because I was waiting a couple of minutes for the first layer to dry. Very splotchy there. Just randomly spreading out the paint. And that is, I think, looks pretty cool. Some more turquoise. Same technique. Very thin layer. There's my small bubble wrap. And I'm making sure I use the extra paint on that bubble wrap. Leaves a nice design on your papers as well. That's another way you can kind of tone down a kind of a very busy, crazy extra paint background. And then that bubble wrap, oh, I just love that texture in the background. That's pretty cool. Maybe a little heavy on the orange, but that's okay. I love that mint green color. That's one of the colors I picked up from recently, of that Lucas paint. It's so pretty, I think. It's not really a mint, I don't think. Look at that. I just love that. You can't do that without a gel plate, I think, or something similar. So I just love doing gel printing, because you just never know what you're going to get. Very splotchy and uneven, just the way I like it. What a cool stencil. I love that pattern. Again, not very evenly spread out, but I think it achieves a pretty cool effect. And once again, if you don't like that effect as much, then definitely spread your paint out more than I'm doing. Too much paint, but pretty color. I have to remove some of that paint because I can tell already it's too much. So now I'm going to try a slightly different technique of putting down a stencil with some big openings, and I'm using this item that's actually a coaster I bought at the kitchen and bath store for texture in those openings. And you'll see, I have to let that dry, you'll see what a pretty print that makes. An interesting print. And don't forget to use, if you have extra paint on your textured piece, like the coaster, then to, put that down on another piece of paper to create even more texture. That one is pretty cool, but it didn't really turn out the way I thought, so I'm going to do that again with a different item. So I have my background, that same stencil, and I'm going to use this round piece that is used for embroidery. I don't do embroidery, so I don't know what it's called, but that's what it's used for. I use it for texture, and it's a really great image, I think. I love that, the way that looks. So I'm going to let that dry and then put down some other color and pull the print, and then you'll see the technique a little bit better. You know, I have to say, in all honesty, that I love the way that yellow looks in the tube, but I really don't like the way it looks on paper. In this case, I kind of mixed it a bit with the orange color, so I like it a little more. But there's that technique. Here are all my prints. I did do a few more after I stopped recording, but you know, I could go on and on, but it's the same technique over and over again, so I didn't want to keep going. There are all my prints. I really love the way they all turned out, really. And I don't think I shared in this little wrap-up my cleanup sheets, but I'm going to use those too, so never fear. And I can add to them if I don't like the way they look, but look at these. I just love the way this turned out. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. I had to come back and say that those are my cleanup papers, and you can see I did try to fix them up to look nicer. I think they turned out really cool. Look at that one. I really do like that. That one's a little bit of a hot mess in areas, but it's okay. Again, thanks for watching. See you next time.